Well, Vince, with that, let's just jump into rapid fire. What do you think?
Let's go, baby. Because
All right.
there's some stuff we were holding out on because we were going to hit it in rapid fire. So
Yes, exactly. We've got
get
a
after it.
Chi-Town question. We've got another question that we're definitely going to hit in rapid fire. So on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yep.
how much do you think Logan Diggs actually benefits by transferring?
1, because that's the lowest I can go, because it's 1 to 10. I know that he's going to benefit mentally from not being at Notre Dame, because I just don't think he ever felt comfortable here at Notre Dame. So I think he'll benefit mentally. From a football standpoint, I just don't see it. He was over 1,000 yards of all-purpose yards last year in a 1A, 1B situation with Audric Estime. It was going to be the very same situation this year. He's going to be over 1,000 yards again. Great opportunity to then enter the NFL draft on a team that wins 10, 11, 12 games, whatever. He has over 1,000 yards. He's a big part of that offense, which could be a record-setting offense at Notre Dame. I'm not saying record-setting in the NCAA, but record-setting at Notre Dame. It could be. To go where? To do what? Like, you're not going to get – are you going to get more carries someplace else? I think that's detrimental to him down the line, because we all know that running backs, you have X amount of carries in your legs, whatever that number is, right? Your guy down in Cowboys land, I think, is a great example of that, right?
Zeke Elliott.
Elliott. You've got X amount of carries. You going to use them up in college, or do you want to use them up in the NFL?
Yep.
I just don't think this is a great move for him.
I don't either, because making this move has to be with an eye on what's going to happen in the NFL draft. And I'm sorry, Logan Diggs is a nice college running back. I think, he should be a guy who's going to be on a roster in the NFL, but I don't see him turning into a first-round draft pick.
No.
Whether he goes to, LSU or, a high-profile program or a smaller program where maybe he gets more carries. I just don't see it. And I completely agree with what you just said about the carries. Like, it's actually more beneficial to him to be splitting carries with Audric Estime or whoever else here at Notre Dame, because scouts can still see your talent, whether you're splitting talent or carries or not. Like, think about that Georgia backfield a couple years back with Chubb and I can't think of the other guy's name now.
Sony Michel?
Michel, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Sony, that's exactly, I was about to say, the guy who ended up with the Rams and was the Patriots and all that. Yeah, like when they were there, look at them. They're both in the NFL, and I just don't see, I think for this to truly pay off the way Logan Diggs thinks it's going to pay off, he's going to have to be a first or second round guy. And I just don't see that happening.
I don't either. And he wants more carries. I just don't see that being beneficial to him. I think that's going to wear on him. I think it's, bigger chance to get hurt. I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't either. So it's funny that I had this on the list, and Chi-Town asked almost the exact same question in the chat earlier, and we had it start up. Notre Dame currently has 3 open scholarships. So what positions are you filling with those 3 scholarships? And we have other people asking specifically, like I think there was another question that just popped in, are they looking for a running back in the transfer portal? So what do you think about this, Vince?
I would say safety, obviously. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That is number one.
On that. Yeah.
And I would even, like, if there's 2, like, I might even get 2, to be honest with you. After that, I think is where it gets very interesting. We talked about this a while back when we first talked about Buckner transferring. It would have to meet some very specific criteria to waste one on a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think that's one I would explore. A graduate who has 2 years of eligibility left. Somebody that may be able to be because I do think that they need to get one next year for sure, for 24. So maybe you get that guy this year. He has a year to learn, a year to be that backup, and then he takes over next year, and then he's the bridge to either Kenny Minchey or CJ Carr. I think that's an absolute possibility. So if you can find a guy, like I said, he needs to check some very specific boxes because you're not coming in to challenge Sam Hartman. You're not. He's the starter. And the guy that comes in would need to understand that, right?
Yeah.
So he would have to check some very specific boxes. The other one I wrote down was, if a top-notch tight end, maybe, just to kind of strengthen that room a little bit, just because of all the injuries. I think there's a ton of talent there, but just another
it's amazing
body.
how much these backup guys have been hurt behind Michael
Yes.
Mayer the last couple of years.
Yes, a ton. So I maybe tight end, and then look, if you can find, this will never happen because these guys don't hit the portal. You can find like a 350-pound nose tackle who just can eat up some space. That kind
I was
of
thinking
thing.
about that as well. Like,
Then you go that route.
Would you want a nose? Yeah.
But those guys just don't show up in the portal. Like, that's just not really a thing. But those are the ones that I wrote down. Michael Johnson says safety, kicker, and a tight end. They have a kicker coming in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that. Remember, they've got a kicker coming in this summer.
And a punter as well. So, I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. I think we all know that it needs to be safety. It's a matter of how many safeties are you taking? Are you just taking one? Are you taking two? Do you want a little bit more depth? Probably couldn't go wrong. Although they can obviously create some depth just by moving a guy or two if that's what they want to do. And that's kind of, because then, you do have to start looking, the more guys you bring in, then you've got guys on your roster already. What are those opportunities going to look like? Are you going to upset the apple cart in those? You definitely have to do what's going to be best for your team. Like, ideally, you'd like another running back, but I just can't see being able to bring a guy in who's really going to compete for time. Like if you felt like Jadarian Price, like if you felt like, man, this is really going to be questionable if he's going to be healthy in time and that kind of stuff, then you probably look at that a little bit closer.
But if you think everybody's healthy, everybody's healthy in that running back room, you're not bringing anybody else in.
Right. Wide receiver's an intriguing one because, again, it's just like a bodies thing at this point. And maybe would you want a little bit more experience? But it just seems like there's so much good stuff going on in that receiver room that I don't think I'd want to add another one this year, especially since you're bringing in another freshman this summer. So I agree. Like, safety, quarterback, the top two, and then there are just like, it's a matter of maybe who the available guy is at some of those other positions that you want to address. But yeah, nose, tight end, receiver, running back, those are all potentials, but I think it depends on who they are.
Yes, and that's a big one because, like, wide receiver, for example, they've got 9, right? And I think ideally you want 10. So is that a possibility? But they're recruiting. They've got 3 commitments in the 24 class.
Yeah.
And you're losing no one from the wide receiver room except, I take it back. You're going to lose Chris Tyree. You lose him, right? And he's one of the 9. But you're gaining 3. So then you're going to be at 11 if you don't bring anybody in, right? So I think you have to be careful. Is it just a 1-year rental? Is he somebody that's actually going to push for playing time with the way that these true freshmen are playing? It's going to have to be the right fit. Otherwise, 9, you're fine with 9. You're fine with 9. So I think that would be interesting. It had to be somebody, because, I mean, look, let's be honest. Caleb Smith isn't going to play at Notre Dame because he was getting passed up. Like, I don't think he was going to get a lot of playing time. I think that's one of the reasons he hung it up. I'm sure there's actual injury issues and all of that. I'm sure. But you don't think Notre Dame took a look at his medicals before he came to campus? Like, he was getting passed up.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think the writing was on the wall.
Right.
So Tommy wants to know, he was asking earlier about, you remember when we were having a contest to try to figure out the name of the Friday show, and someone was donating a picture and all that stuff. So he wants to know what happened, Vince. Do you know,
I'm curious.
Do you know the story of this?
I don't.
I don't have a clue.
I don't know the story.
I think it kind of died with the fact that we couldn't come to a consensus on a different name than what we have. And so I don't think that we ever got that painting from anyone that I know of anyway.
Yeah, I thought,
Because a guy was going to donate it.
didn't
Remember?
Jesse have it in his possession?
I don't think so.
No?
I'll have
Okay.
to ask him, but
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, I never
think that-
did.
yeah,
I know I never had it. So
I never did
I don't
either.
know I don't know, man. I think we just screwed you guys. I think that's really what happened. I think we yeah. We didn't follow through.
Mm-hmm. So the college football playoff has released the schedules for the first two 12-team expanded playoffs in 2024 and 2025. So here's how it's going to work. In the first round, one game will be played on campus sites. This is next year on December 20th. And then 3 games will be played the following day. That's the first round. And they're all on campus sites. So you've got one game the first day, 3 games the next day. The quarterfinals are going to be the same thing. New Year's Eve, there'll be 1 game. And then on New Year's Day, there'll be a triple header. 3 college football playoff games in the quarterfinals. Semifinals are Thursday, January 9th, and the national championship game will be on a Monday, January 20th. So it's going to extend all the way to January 20th for the national championship. But let me ask you, in 2025 is going to be the same thing. You know, the dates will be a little bit different, obviously, with
Right.
those first round and quarter. Yeah. But
the
then
same distance and all that.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Exactly. Right. The triple header quarterfinals, triple header on New Year's Day. So what do you think about having 3 games, 3 playoff games New Year's Day, as opposed to spreading out these big bowls like they have done, you know, with the orange and the cotton and the, you know, like non-playoff, but New Year's 6. What do you think about them playing these triple headers on New Year's Day like this?
Freaking love it. We're back to New Year's Day and it matters.
Old school, baby.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that there's going to be games before Christmas that I give a crap about. I think that's awesome, to be honest with you, because there's that lull from the end of the season. You know, you always kind of have like the Army-Navy game. Okay. You've got not a whole lot after Thanksgiving, right? I mean, I guess the week after Thanksgiving is the conference championships. So that's a good weekend. But from that point until New Year's, you got nothing, really. You got, you know, if you follow a small school, okay, awesome, great. But you really got nothing. Games that matter on the 20th and the 21st. Yeah. Yes, please. Love
Bring it
that.
on, baby. I can't
love
believe
it.
I'm seeing some of the comments in the chat. People are hating this whole thing. Like,
really?
I don't understand what's to hate about this. It's football games that matter rather than a bunch of meaningless games. And especially on New Year's Day, like I just remember back, you know, like college and around that time, and even before that, you know, back into high school, it's like, you know, like New Year's Day was just chock full from the time you woke up until the time you went to bed at night, and the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl, you know, like the whole thing.
Yes.
It's like, give it to me. Bring on game. And like, that's what I didn't like about the way they had set up these New Year's 6. It's like, okay, you know, you play all these games and then you play a couple playoff games. And then 2 days later, you've got, you know, like the Sugar Bowl or whatever. It's like, you're still playing that game afterwards. Like, now you're going to have 3 meaningful games back to back to back on New Year's Day. I love it. Totally love
awesome. It. And from a standpoint that if the team that I cover is in these games, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much fun going to these games and the atmosphere around these games and all, like going to Notre Dame Stadium on the 20th of December. And my hope is that it's a Southern team that has to come up here. It's going to be awesome. It is going to be friggin' awesome.
Now, a follow-up of sorts that DT Rollhunter had in there earlier, I wanted to kind of piggyback that with this. Do you think the prolonged playoff game series will decrease fan attendance for the title game? 3 rounds is a lot to pay for. Do you think the title game will be the new Super Bowl?
Now, that part I do think is a possibility. Like, I think that you might not see as many quote unquote fans, and it might become a little bit more corporate. I could definitely see that being the case because it is a lot. That is a lot to ask a fan to potentially go to 4 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot. So I could see that being a problem. Now, I don't think that they'll ever not sell out, but I will also say I went to the Fiesta Bowl, right? The Jack Cone Fiesta Bowl. The stadium was like 3/4 full. Like it was a lot less full than I thought it was going to be.
But it also wasn't a playoff game.
Agreed.
And that's what we're going to have to find out in this, because
right.
even though you're adding more rounds and more games, as they say, to go to, they also
need
count
more
for something.
They need more.
Exactly.
And so I think you're not going to have as much of an issue selling out. I really don't. I think you're going to get more attendance in these Fiesta Bowls and Cotton Bowls, and I think you are going to get more attendance in those. Now, once the field starts to narrow and all of that, it may be a little bit. It may become more corporate for the national championship.
And that's what, like, seeing that last sentence, will it become the new Super Bowl? I can definitely see, like, even if the fans don't go, they'll find a way. Like you said, there are plenty of high rollers who want those tickets.
Yep.
And it could become a lot more corporate. It's like corporations, whoever companies buy up these tickets and give them to clients and whatever else. Okay.
Sure.
Nobody's going to care as long as there are booties in the seats.
Exactly.
That's what it's going to come
down
to. I will be curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Though, because
it makes these New Year's 6 games relevant again.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
You have to decide. Some people are going to say, like your Georgia and Alabama people, I'm sure are going to say, well, we're not going to go to those first couple games. We'll just wait for the semifinals and the championship and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it will, to Jason's point, it'll be sold out one way or the other. It's just a matter of what kind of fan is sitting in the seats, I think.
Yep.
So ESPN executive Seth Markman says NFL draft guru Mel Kiper Jr. belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Do you buy it or do you sell it?
That's a huge buy. I mean, it's a huge buy. He has reinvented what the draft is. And I realize a lot of that has to do with, the TV and marketing and all of that. But with his mock drafts and, all the stuff that he was doing, everything piggyback off of that. I
trailblazer.
Think 100%. He revolutionized the draft and made it important. And now it's an event. I mean, you saw how many people were at the draft in Kansas City this past week. It's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Like, it is an event. And yes, 100% he belongs in the Hall of Fame. 100%.
I couldn't agree more. The guy's been doing it for 40 years, and he essentially created this position. There's a reason that Bill Tobin was like, who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? That whole
I've seen that clip.
At that point, he was still relatively new to this. And he obviously, as Tobin pointed out, hadn't played and all those different things. But, I guess like when Kiper was still in high school, he went to Ernie Accorsi, who was the general manager of the Baltimore Colts. And like he had showed him, all of his draft scouting stuff. And of course he was like, you should try to make a career out of this. And here he is. And now you've got, literally hundreds and thousands of people copying him. And they obviously have a media wing of all the halls of fame. So absolutely Mel Kiper Jr. should be there. There's no reason that he shouldn't be. And it's like, when you think about it, 40 years down the road, it's kind of surprising that there hasn't kind of been a push before this.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. I'm surprised it hasn't happened before this. I mean, when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, wow, yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame, is he? Like, some guys get in the Hall of Fame with a lot less of a resume than what Mel Kiper has.
Yeah.
Off the field. The field.
Exactly.
Like owners and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like, he had just as much influence on what the NFL is today than some of the owners that are already in there.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like when he started doing this, you had maybe a couple other people, like Dr. Z with Sports Illustrated. He was doing some draft stuff and, like guys at the Sporting News and stuff like that. But there were very few. And that was back when the NFL, like they were still doing it like in one room, and it wasn't nearly the production.
It was in like a meeting room in a hotel. I mean, that's basically what it was, Yep.
DT says draft wouldn't be what it is without him. I agree. Fill in the blank. It's blank that a little league in New Jersey has implemented a new rule that a parent who argues with an umpire during a game has to volunteer to be an umpire for 3 games before being allowed back as a spectator.
I love this rule. I love it. Now, you might get somebody that's not very good at it, obviously, who doesn't have the training or
True.
know the rules. And so you do
Yeah.
have to kind of balance that out. But it is Little League. And so it's not as big of a deal as like a high school game. But these Little League umpires get way too much crap, frankly. Okay. Like,
Especially today. Like when you see some of these extreme things that are going on, when
oh
people
my,
share the videos and stuff like that.
I love the fact that they're going to be putting people in this position because they need to know what it feels like to be back there calling balls and strikes and what it's like. I mean, I used to umpire like my little brother's games. Like that's what Little League, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you're a player, you know the rules, like get back there. You know what I mean? I think it would be nice to see some parents have to do that. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to say that I was always a saint when it came to umpires, but Little League definitely. I was not like
Yeah.
the parent that was piping up at Little League games. Let's put it that way.
It's terrible.
And that's and you just some of the stuff that you hear is just crazy. And I do like a few years ago, I did a I umpired behind the plate. Remember when the football team used to play the local law enforcement agencies
Oh
down
yeah.
at Four Winds Field in the charity
Yep.
softball game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like me and a couple other local media people. I think it was like Pete Byrne and
Really.
Allison Hayes from the TV stations. And I had told them when they asked me if I would be at, because they were asking, media people, to be a guest umpire. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do home plate. And so what did I get stuck with? Home plate,
From
because
that three
neither one of the
yeah.
other two wanted to do home plate.
Exactly.
So I got home plate.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a different now softball's a different perspective anyway, because it's
Sure.
like lobbing in there and it's
that's like a
I've got
fun
Chip,
game.
I've got like Chip Long, who's got his mock turtleneck and he's like staring me down from that was when he was doing it, but it was like he was the most intense of the whole crew. There were some cops that were pretty intense out there.
I'll bet
as
they
well.
were.
But yeah, that's it was actually kind of fun, like when some of these other guys would get a little bit more intense. I joke with some of the football players and stuff like that. It's like, geez, come on. It's a charity softball game. But you do get a different perspective when you have to do that.
Yeah, you
definitely
do.
get a different, and I think that especially, for some of those parents who go overboard like that, I think it's the perfect rule.
Yeah, I do too.
Either that or just ban them, lifetime ban.
Put your money where your mouth
is.
is. Like you want to speak up? Here's the equipment. Have some fun.
Yep. So we recently talked about the movie Gladiator, and a sequel is in the works. Scale of 1 to 10. How hopeful are you that the sequel will match the quality of the original?
Again, a 1. I have look, Gladiator, in my opinion, is one of the best, and I will call it a sports movie out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what we talked about, whether or not it was a sports movie.
It is, number one. Number two, it's one of the just the pageantry of it. Back then, like the special effects were really, really good. Okay, like recreating the Coliseum and all of that, and the storyline was good. And look, Russell Crowe's an old man; he's dead in the movie, so you can't bring him back. So I have a hard time with you just can't do a sequel of a really, really good movie like this. You just can't do it. Like Top Gun sequel worked because Tom Cruise is still around. Gladiator sequel's not going to work because Maximus is dead.
Yes, Maximus died in the first one.
Yeah.
And, if they were going to bring Russell Crowe back, he would have to lose like 80 pounds.
There's that too. There's that too.
Yeah. But I did see that they're bringing back Connie Nielsen, who played Joaquin Phoenix's sister, the sister.
Okay.
And there's a few others who are going to be in there. Pedro Pascal was not in the original, but like he's kind of, he was in Game of Thrones. He's the guy who's in The Last of Us. He was, big hit, just a couple of months ago. on
Okay.
HBO, and I think he's on another one of the like Mandalorian or something like that, I think. So he's kind of the big name right now, like the hot name attached to it. But I agree. Like mine, and we saw some variations there. And I don't think Ridley Scott's going to be directing it. Would be my guess. I, I just, I don't know. I
Yeah.
would, like you said, I would want to see Maximus / Russell Crowe, and
Yes.
we're talking about almost 25 years down the road at this point, and the character died. So I just don't know.
I don't know how you can
I don't know how it comes
rewrite
close.
that. I don't know how you can rewrite that and bring him back. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
Unless you're making him CGI and he is, younger.
well, and I'm not even saying that Maximus needed to be out there fighting, right? Because when he killed the Emperor, he was supposed to take over. So he could just be back as the Emperor. You know, like
Right.
I would be okay with that, but I don't know
So
how
now
you
he
reverse
lived?
the fact that he's dead. Like
Right.
that's the problem. If they would have left it as like a cliffhanger, okay. Right? Now, I will also say Irish Chi-Town, a prequel could be interesting. And that one would be very interesting because the guy who bought Maximus was a gladiator before. And remember, he won his freedom and all of that. Like, tell his story.
And I can
that
see,
I could get on board with.
and I haven't seen like what the storyline is going to be, but like I could see Pedro Pascal potentially being that guy, because that guy was, I can't remember if he was supposed to be, like they called Russell Crowe the Spaniard, which was, a bit of
Right.
a stretch to begin with, but
Sure.
it seemed like that guy was more, kind of had maybe Spanish,
Sure.
lineage or something like that.
Because
And
he gave
Pedro
him
Pascal,
that gear. He gave him
Yeah.
that armor.
Right.
But then they had that scene where he talked about how he was the one that gave him his freedom, and he's like, you never met the Emperor. He's like, I never said I met the Emperor. I said he touched me once on the shoulder.
Right. And that's a good Father David up on his Gladiator. That actor did die during the filming. But I mean, if it's a prequel, you're having a different actor do it anyway. So, because like to your point, like it would be probably set like 15 or 20 or 20, 25 years beforehand, like when that guy was younger and he was the gladiator, I think is what you were saying.
I think that I could get on board with that. Now, I don't know, like you said, I don't know what I believe the little boy who is the woman's son, I believe it's going to center around him. From what I think I read, he's involved. He's somehow involved. So,
and that would make sense because, like I said, she's back in it.
So his mom,
the sister,
So his mom is in it. That would make sense. I believe it's centered around him. Maybe he's the new emperor. I don't know, but I believe it's centered around him. But either way, you're messing with a classic, man.
Yeah, I know.
Let's have some original ideas, people.
Yeah. Well, and Jesse and I talked yesterday. I don't know if you saw that Vince Vaughn is working on the Dodgeball sequel 20 years later.
But that's like a goofy comedy. Like, you can go back and have some fun with that. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth on that one, but like I'm okay with the Dodgeball sequel because it's a
but
goofy
I still
comedy.
Wonder where that's gonna go 20 years later. Like what's does Vince still own Average Joe's, or like it's gonna be very interesting.
Yes.
It's gonna be we'll probably end up seeing both of them. How hopeful I am.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, we'll definitely go see both of them for sure.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you joining us here this evening. Vince, enjoyed it as always.
Yeah, baby.
And of course, hit the like button on your way out if you have not done so already. And the reminder to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll be back tomorrow. And again, we'll have Notre Dame baseball player Brooks Coetzee with us. And Jesse and I will have some rapid fire as well on tomorrow's show. So we've got all that coming up for you tomorrow. And then I think it'll be the first time in like 3 weeks that the three of us are together for the Friday rapid fire.
I think you're absolutely right about that. So that'll be fun. I miss the three of us going back and forth. That'd be good.
I know, for sure. All right. We will talk to you then. IB Nation Sports Talk.